the new head coach of the Buffalo Sabres, Lindy Ruff.
What really got the team started was the way Dominic Hasek played. Last 3 months of the season, the fans had made a huge difference. We had this building just rocking.
I'm going to leave you with 2 words. No goal.
Briere with it. Shoots one off the goal. Score!
Now Stafford goes flying in there. Ruff is trying to get in there. He's getting an earful. 2 earfuls.
Communicate, be heavy, let's go win this thing. Come on.
Great road trip. Great road trip.
This is one heck of a show that I never anticipated that I would be recording. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But the Buffalo Sabres have brought back legendary coach Lindy Ruff to come back to Buffalo. And I got the news as I was in the middle of a class, could not contain my excitement in the class, and proceeded to, I didn't get myself in trouble necessarily, but I did get a reaction as to what was I going, yes, over. And right there, Goathead's making a full comeback. These are my favorite, for the visual audience, these are my favorite coasters, Sabres coasters, these Goathead coasters, which I love dearly. Really happy I got these. But when I did the last podcast that I did on the Buffalo Sabres, I talked about their head coaching search. That was available on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast audio side of things. I was really happy to just kind of dive into what I thought about what direction the Buffalo Sabres should or were going to go in. And this was a direction that I thought was highly possible. This was one of the scenarios that I listed as highly likely that this could happen. And to me, it's polarizing. I knew it was going to be polarizing then. And it was certainly, polarizing as I had heard this news and read that this news, was as it was reacted to. The reactions to it have been pretty polarizing already. Some fans really love this. Some fans really do not like it. And that goes to the fans that like it. I'd say they understand, they have a good idea of who Lindy Ruff is as a coach. The fans that like it know and see Lindy Ruff as a coach, not just for the Sabres, but at one point for the Dallas Stars and at another point for the New Jersey Devils. And he was successful over a 16-year period, largely successful with the Buffalo Sabres. And I think to say that this is a nostalgia hire, I think we'd be silly to not look at it as a nostalgia hire. It's a nostalgia of good for a fan base that has been struggling to have anything, remotely anything, to be excited about. And the last time this fan base really had any reason to look at the team and say, wow, we have a lot to look forward to, was when Lindy was coaching it. So the way that I see it here is that it's been 13 years since the Buffalo Sabres made the playoffs, and the last guy to lead them there was Lindy Ruff. It's a failure, a total failure on the part of the organization that they've been unable to bring in a coach that demands respect, accountability, and that sets a high standard. And I started taking a coaching class to learn coaching in a lot of different levels. And there are things that I thought I knew about coaching that I certainly did not know until I took this class. And I'd like to think I know a thing or two more now, not just from this perspective of this podcast, being a fan of the sport, former player, obviously, coached a little bit myself, to now taking these classes and now knowing full well what makes a good coach. And Lindy Ruff is widely respected around the National Hockey League as one of the best coaches, not just in an era, but of all time. He's 5th in wins all time in the National Hockey League with 864. Most wins in Sabres history by a country mile. So this is the greatest head coach that the Sabres have ever had making his return. And I think we'd be foolish if we didn't look at that and we didn't say, wow, that's pretty cool. But the detractors, those that'll look at this move and scoff at it, and you guys can chime in, give me your takes, chime in, of course, Thomas Takes Sports Podcast in the comment section below. Chat with yours truly, I should say, and amongst yourselves as far as what your thoughts are on this hire. I know, talking to like my dad about this hire, talking to some of my best friends about this hire, some friends really liked it, some friends didn't. My dad didn't really like it. I think it's going to grow on him. I think it'll grow on him. I really do. I hold out hope that it will. But the people that don't like this hire and feel like, okay, it's a wait and see approach, but I really don't like it, they're just going back to the old coach that they had. Okay, why'd they fire him in the first place? That's a big question. Why did they fire him in the first place? He'd been here for 16 years, led us to a Stanley Cup final appearance, almost led us to 2 more back-to-back. The message at the time was getting a little stale. They felt like they needed a little bit of something else, I guess. And Terry Pegula, new owner at the time, wanted to just make his own stamp on the team. And we have been on a Carnival Circus ride ever since. But Lindy Ruff, make no mistake about it, has been intertwined with Buffalo even ever since he was fired. He's shown up at Sabres alumni events, showed up at the big event that they had in tribute to Rick Jeanneret, which I thought was really nice to see and brought tears to my eyes being there and seeing that. I think he has a lot of love and respect for that crest, that logo, that city, this city, I should say. It brings tears to my eyes when I talk about it because I know for a fact that he is super excited for this opportunity. And the memories of that time, if we could get even a little bit of that back, and if he was a big reason as to why, it would be a beautiful thing. And to me, the emotion that I have is remembering some of those times. So if we could get even a little bit of that back with Lindy Ruff back again, I'd be really happy. But to the detractors, they look at Lindy Ruff and they say, well, he might not fit today's game. Last I checked, there's a lot of coaches, Lindy Ruff being one of them, that has proven that he can win really anywhere he goes. And 2 years ago, the last team that, fired Lindy Ruff, obviously the New Jersey Devils, 2 years ago, they were the best team in the Eastern Conference. And this year took a step back, had some injuries, had some goaltending issues, and they just wanted to go in a different direction. The NHL is really fickle in that regard. I think the NHL has shown as of recently that they are far more willing to move on from a coach after 2 or 3 years, even in comparison to the NFL. I thought the NFL was the most cutthroat league in terms of coaching. I think the NHL is actually more cutthroat. If they don't see progress, if they don't see players progressing, if the team statistically declines or points wise, one year they got 94 points, the next year they got 70, there's a good chance that they're going to find somebody else. And there's a huge generational shift that's going on with coaches. We've seen some younger coaches get some jobs. We've seen some older coaches still hanging around. You got Lindy Ruff still in the league. You got John Tortorella, one of my favorites. You got quite a few that are pining to get another shot at an NHL head coaching position. And really these teams that are looking for a new head coach, they value experience. And there's other teams that look at young coaches, that value the youth aspect of how they can develop and mold and develop, I think is a word I stated, but really development is huge in the sport of hockey. So to me, when I look at Lindy Ruff, I see a coach that the biggest reason why Kevin Adams made this move, and it had to be one that would buy him a little bit of time, had to be one that would not just buy him a little bit of time, make no mistake about it, if this doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? But a move that would buy him time in a sense that, okay, fans understand what they're getting with Lindy Ruff. They understand that this is a coach that will bring something to the Buffalo Sabres that they have not had in a long time. This is a coach that will bring respectability, that will bring an attitude, that will bring a drive, a passion, and a coach that will push the players, that will demand results, and that will raise the standard. These players over the last 10 years have been allowed to run the team, and that is never how a coach should coach his team. Players, you have captains, you have assistant captains, alternates, whatever you want to refer to them as in the sport of hockey. But make no mistake about it, that the true leader of the team always, first and foremost, has to be their coach. And the Sabres, between Dan Bilesma, Ron Rolston, Donnie Granato, Ralph Kruger, Ted Nolan, who was another hire that they brought back that was kind of in the stopgap era of their team after Lindy Ruff, after Rolston, I believe. None of them worked because I think there's a lot of reasons, but in particular to Donnie Granato, speaking as recent, head coach, I really liked Don Granato. I always will. I really wish it would have worked out for him. I think he's a really nice guy. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him once, and he was great. We had an extensive conversation, which was really, out of nowhere. But I looked at Granato as a guy that would develop the players, and he did that. But now this team there's just another gear that this team has to get to. And they have to have a coach that is ready, willing, and able to push the team to the brink of exhaustion. These players need a coach that can come in and grind them down, wear them down to nothingness, and bring them back up. They need to be brought down to zero and brought back up again. I think that there is a little bit of a stink on this team in terms of identity post the Jack Eichel trade that has lingered. And I think that there are guys that have stepped up massively. I don't want to sugarcoat that, as my wallet's falling out of my pocket. I don't want to sugarcoat that. I think Alex Tuck has been phenomenal. I loved that trade. I was so happy to see the Sabres move on from Jack. Of course, everybody knows that I was not a fan of Jack Eichel. Didn't really feel like it was a fit even from day one. But Tuck has been great. Thompson has been great. I think Cousins has so much potential, so much to bring to the table that has just not been achieved yet. And you look at a Peyton Krebs, a little bit of meat left on the bone there that we want to see that we haven't really seen yet from him. Rasmus Dahlin, one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League, one of the smoothest skating defensemen I have ever seen, or just players in general that I have ever seen. A defenseman by the name of Bowen Byram that the Sabres traded Casey Middlestat for was great. He did a lot of really good things towards the tail end of the season for us. So from February to April, he got hurt, dinged up a little bit in March, and was never really, ready to be back out there as much in April as the season, came to a close, obviously. But for the Sabres, that was. But to me, this team is not as close as people think they are. I do think that they need to add. I think that there's some players that could definitely go, players that could come up. To me, if there was one guy that I'm looking at on this Sabres roster that's been on this Sabres roster for quite some time, it's going to be a real challenge for him going from Donnie Granato to Lindy Ruff, could be Jeff Skinner. And he's a guy that I really like. I've always been a big Jeff Skinner fan offensively. He's got all the attributes, but he is not a two-way player. Lindy Ruff wants players to play both sides of the puck, I guess you could say. I like to say both sides of the ball in football, but you could say both sides of the ice, I guess, in this case. Lindy Ruff demands that you have a two-way game, and he's going to raise the level of that concept within this team, and this team needs it. I mean, this team has lacked true grit since he left. There has not been that grittiness, that grinder ability on this team. And Dallas had it when he was their coach. New Jersey had it when he was their coach. Buffalo's been missing it for a long time. So, I don't know if this is the move that is going to win the Sabres the Stanley Cup. All I know, in my lifetime, which I was born in 1992, Lindy Ruff got the head coaching job of the Sabres in 1997. So for many, many years of my life, Lindy Ruff was the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. And for those many years that he was the head coach of the Sabres, they were largely successful. And you saw progress. You saw them building something. You saw a coach that had a command of his team. You saw a coach that could stand at a podium and talk to his team in preseason action leading into the season. You saw a coach that year in, year out made the program of the Sabres, the organization of the Sabres, one that was respected for a very long time. And I can't say that this last 13 years of the Sabres has been an organization that's been respected. And that pains me to say that. I don't want to have to say those things, but I will, because it's just the way it's been. And I think there's players on this team that will be weeded out. The weak will be weeded out. Lindy Ruff will find the links of this team that are rusty, and he will destroy them out of town, and a part of me feels like this team really needs that. This team has had stagnant contributions year in, year out, and you can't quite put your finger on who they are. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out who's willing to rise to the challenge of being coached by Lindy Ruff, because we know there's a lot of stories out there about how he coached the last Sabres teams, the Vaneks and the Pominvilles and the Roys and the Brières, the Drurys, the Stu Barnes, the Matt Barnabys, the Rob Rays. There's a lot of stories out there from those guys on how these practices that they had with Lindy behind the bench were grueling and were extensive. 2 hours on game night. So they're skating for 5 hours in that one day. But you know what? The Sabres have been missing that level of attention to detail. They've been missing that level of competitiveness, and it's diminished what the crest has meant to the whole thing. Whether it's fans, whether it's the players, whether it's the NHL, the Sabres organization needs to get back to being the Buffalo Sabres. And for a long time, they were competitive, they were gritty, they were tough to play against, and they made hockey fun. And hockey in Buffalo has not been fun in a long time, for a prolonged period of time, for a long time. So I'm really excited. I think that this is a interesting move for Lindy Ruff too. He can say, well, this team fired me, and 13 years later they needed me back, or however many years, 12, 13 years later, they needed me back. And he was willing to come back. What does that say about Lindy Ruff's commitment to the organization that drafted him, the organization that hired him the first time as a head coach, and to the fan base that I know Lindy Ruff has a love for, unlike most coaches ever have. So to me, goes back to 1979, his ties to the Sabres, coached this team for many, many years. The last year he left the organization was in 2012 was when he was fired. 16 games into the season, he was fired. I didn't think it was the right move then. I remember where I was when I heard that he was fired, and I thought, okay, now what? I'm not saying that he should have been their coach the entire time, but he's back now. So maybe he wouldn't have been back if he had stayed longer. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just, this is just how time and this is just how things work, I guess. But it's a move that I think will show a different competitive nature to the Buffalo Sabres. And it's one that has been desperately missing from this team since he left. And you can say, oh, they could have went out and got Craig Berube or Joel Quenneville, or, those guys might not have wanted to come here, to be quite honest. And I don't blame them, because this has been a dumpster fire. And the only guy that's willing to come back right out of the chute here, as they fired Granato a week ago, was Lindy Ruff. And Kevin Adams, Sabres general manager Kevin Adams, I'd be remiss to not mention Kevin Adams in this story, but Kevin Adams let us know what he was looking for. He was looking for an experienced coach that could bring this group to the next level. And Lindy Ruff has proven over a 2-decade-plus coaching career that he can bring young players to the next level. He's done it a lot over the course of his career. So in coaching. So Kevin Adams has to be excited for the opportunity to work with Lindy Ruff again. Lindy Ruff has to be excited for the opportunity to be back in Buffalo. I have nothing but good things to say about Terry Pegula as well. I think that I wanted to talk about this when talking about the Buffalo Bills on my podcast Wednesday, tomorrow, but I will bring this up now because I think that it's more noteworthy in this move. So I even mentioned it earlier that, Terry Pegula fired Lindy Ruff, and now he's bringing Lindy Ruff back after, 12 years. To me, you could look at that and say, well, they shouldn't have fired him, and I mentioned that. But to me, it just shows that Lindy wants to be back here with Terry Pegula as his boss. He'd want his old boss back again in order to be back here. And I think a lot of people say things about Terry Pegula that they shouldn't say. They question a lot of things that they shouldn't question. His commitment to the area, his commitment to winning, his commitment to the game of football or hockey. I'm not naive enough or ignorant enough, I should say, to question those things. I think to question those things is ignorant. Knowing what he is committed to buying both the Sabres and the Bills, and knowing what this guy has gone through to the extent that I do, at the length of the extent that I do, which isn't much, but anytime, you're dealing with a family matter where Kim Pegula has struggled with her health these last few years, his wife, who was a top executive at the NHL and NFL level and did a lot of great things for both the Sabres and the Bills, as one of the few female owners in all of sport. You experience, a devastating health issue in your family, and let alone it's your wife, your life partner. I know that has probably taken a toll these last few years, and I have the utmost respect for Terry to continue to go through that as the top guy in his family, obviously, while owning two major sports franchises. It can't be easy. It can't. So I want to just send that shout out. Maybe we'll I'll put this here. I'm gonna put this. I'm going to say that I think Terry Pegula is a great owner. There's no other owner that I'd rather have for the Buffalo Bills or Sabres than Terry. And maybe you guys can disagree with me on that. I have my own opinions on it, but I truly think that his commitment has been proven over the course of 10 plus years. And maybe the winning hasn't been there. And if you want to determine winning by a great owner by winning, there were a lot of years where George Steinbrenner wasn't winning anything as the owner of the New York Yankees, and people say he's the greatest owner in sports history. There's been a long period of time that Jerry Jones has not won anything as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. People say that he's the most business savvy owner in professional sports history. Well, on the field, he has not done well. Off the field, yeah, that's a different story. So to me, I'm just excited. I really am. I'm not saying that this is like we're going to go win the cup or anything like that. I just think this was an easy move to make. And maybe that's why people criticize it. They don't want the easy move. But for a franchise that has missed the playoffs the last 13 years, the last time they did it was with a coach by the name of Lindy Ruff. If that guy wants to coach your team again, why would you not? To me, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the accountability will be there. The respect will be there. The drive will be there. The standard will be there with Lindy Ruff as the head coach. It's safe to say he's a little rough around the edges sometimes with the boys in blue and gold, but this team has needed that for a very long time. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to go to some games this year. I always try to support this team among the Bills, of course, as well. I would support the Sabres, go to, 4 or 5 games a year, sometimes 6 or 7, take the lady, take my dad, go with some friends. I'll be sure to support them for the rest of my life. And I'll be sure to remember this day, April 22nd, 2024, as this podcast is recorded. Lindy Ruff, the legendary Sabres head coach, is making his return to One Seymour Knox Plaza. And to me, it's only fitting that Lindy Ruff, with the graphic Sabres head coach, is right underneath it. I'm really looking forward to his return to Buffalo as the Sabres head coach. It's going to be a very nice moment. I think it's going to be a very emotional moment. You guys got to remember, Lindy Ruff went through a lot being the head coach here. And the fact that this guy is still willing to put his name on the line, still willing to face the music as a NHL head coach. And I mean, he's got to be 64. He's a little younger than I thought he was, to be honest. But the fact that he's still willing to put his name out there and be that guy, I think it says a lot. I think it says a lot. And I'm really pumped. I want to read the statement that he made. Let's see if we can find it here. Just go to sabres.com. We'll just find it on sabres.com. Pardon me for that, but let's see here. Lindy Ruff is back. 5th winningest head coach in NHL history. So Kevin Adams, the Sabres general manager, says, I am thrilled to welcome Lindy back as the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. As I went through the hiring process, it quickly became clear Lindy was the person for the job. He has experience. He has a proven track record. He has familiarity with young players and so much more. I want to be very clear, though, that this hire was not made with nostalgia in mind. Lindy is the right person for the job now, and any history with our organization and community is simply an added bonus. I believe wholeheartedly that Lindy can help our team reach their goals, and I am excited to get to work with him. That was Kevin Adams' statement. And then, of course, Lindy responded with his own statement. Not responded to Adams, but posted his own statement. He says, I am thankful to Terry, the entire Pegula family, and Kevin Adams for this opportunity. This is a team ready to take the next step. I am both humbled and honored to be trusted to help this team win now. It is not a job that I take lightly. It is my goal to ensure that players believe in one another, they play for each other, and they love being a Buffalo Sabre. There is no doubt that we all need to embrace the challenge ahead of us. The work starts today. I could not be more excited. Among the accomplishments that Ruff has, not only the winningest head coach in Sabres history, but he coached the most games in Sabres history, most playoff games coached, playoff wins, which was his first stint from 1997 to 2013. Jack Adams Award winner as the top coach in 2005-2006 and led the team to a 110-point finish in 05-06. That was one of the best years of my life watching, playoff anything. So tomorrow, Tuesday at 1, the Sabres will be talking to the media. Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff. The press conference will be on the Sabres Facebook, X, and YouTube channels, and I cannot wait for that. So, what a day for Sabres hockey. It's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out, but safe to say I'm really excited about it. I think that there's a lot of fans out there that are going to hate this move. I think there's a lot of fans out there that are going to love it. I stand in the middle. I love it for the nostalgia. I won't lie. But I like it for what it could bring. Now, in the small chance that this does not work, then the entire thing will get blown up again. Kevin Adams will be gone. They'll need a new GM, a new head coach. But I'll trust history. I'll trust pedigree. I'll trust experience that Lindy Ruff's the right man for Buffalo. I bet on that because he has been the right man for Buffalo once before. Why can't he be again? I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Special Edition. Breaking news, the Buffalo Sabres hire legendary coach Lindy Ruff as Lindy Ruff makes his return